Okay, so like, have you noticed how everybody and their dogs got an opinion on relationships these days?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like everyone's suddenly an expert, right?
Right.
But it's kind of overwhelming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like everyone's giving you these puzzle pieces,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't actually fit together.
Yeah.
You've got like the whole follow your heart crew over here, and then you've got like the hardcore strategists over there.
Right.
And it's like, who do you even listen to?
Yeah.
So today we are diving into this whole blue pill versus red pill thing,
Okay.
which is kind of blown up, right?
It has become huge, especially online. Yeah.
Especially online, it's like everywhere you look.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to get beyond just the memes, right? Like,
Right.
what are the actual ideas behind these perspectives?
Exactly.
Because
Because
I think there's actually some interesting stuff there.
there is. And I think when you actually dig into it, what's so interesting about this dichotomy is that it it takes this very complex thing, human connection, relationships,
Mhm.
and it tries to kind of like shove it into these two very neat boxes.
Slightly, yeah.
But we're going to see how it's a lot messier than that.
Way messier. Way messier.
More nuanced for sure.
Yeah, so to kind of like set the scene for people who might not be super familiar with this whole blue pill, red pill thing,
Yeah.
imagine the blue pill. It's like this nice park, it's sunny, the birds are chirping.
Okay.
It's that very traditional, like, romantic view of love. You meet someone organically, there's like these sparks, you build a life together based on shared values,
Mm,
commitment, all the good stuff.
the fairy tale.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fairy tale ending.
And like a lot of people really connect with that idea,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because we all kind of want that.
of course.
Like
Yeah.
deep down, it's like that human longing for connection, that
Yeah.
hope for like a love that conquers all.
Absolutely.
But then we go over the red pill side of things, and
Yeah.
things get a little more
It's-
intense, a little more realpolitik, I would say.
Yeah, a little more like down and dirty.
So how would you characterize that perspective?
So I think the red pill perspective really tends to view relationships through a much more pragmatic lens.
Yeah.
It draws a lot from evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology.
Okay.
And essentially argues that a lot of our behaviors, especially in dating,
Mm-hmm.
come down to these like primal instincts.
Okay.
You'll hear terms like hypergamy thrown around a lot.
Yep.
This idea that women are inherently wired to seek out partners who are of higher status.
Right. That's where it gets kind of controversial too, right?
Exactly.
Because some people hear that and they're like, yes, finally someone's saying it.
Yes.
And other people are like, this is so cynical.
This is so negative.
Yeah. And it's important to acknowledge both of those reactions
Chris?
because it really speaks to how deeply we hold these beliefs about love.
Exactly. And how we've been socialized to think about love too.
Exactly. And like what we want to believe about love.
Ab-
But I think what we found really interesting is that both of these sides, I think, miss some important nuances
For sure.
because they're painting with very broad strokes.
Yes.
And relationships are just not that simple.
Not at all.
Like, have you found that in your work at all?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we've really tried to do is look at the research that's been done on couples who identify with these different perspectives.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is even when you find couples who both strongly identify, let's say with the red pill,
Mm-hmm.
there's huge variation in how that actually plays out.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense, though, right?
Of course.
Because it's like, okay, you say you believe in the red pill, but like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Like in terms of how you communicate, in terms of how do you
Yes.
deal with conflict?
Right, right.
Like all of your own individual history and baggage and all that comes into play.
All of it. Yeah. And so it creates this illusion of understanding.
Right.
But I think it can actually be very misleading.
Right. It's like this shortcut that doesn't actually get you there.
It doesn't get to the nuance. No, it doesn't get to the complexity, which is the reality of human relationships.
Right. So if clinging too tightly to either of these extremes can be limiting,
Yeah.
where does that leave us? Like,
Mhm.
what's the alternative?
Well, I
Do
think
we need like a bigger box
yeah.
or like no box at all?
I think it points to the need for a new model entirely.
Okay.
One that really emphasizes the importance of moving beyond these categories
Okay.
and embracing the gray area. Because
Well,
most people aren't fully blue pill or fully red pill, right?
Totally. Yeah.
They're somewhere on a spectrum.
Yeah. We contain multitudes, as they say.
Exactly. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's more than okay. I would say that's like the reality for most people.
Yeah. And it's more about self-awareness then, right?
Yes.
Like understanding your own values,
Yeah.
your own needs.
Your own patterns in relationships and then being able to communicate those to a partner.
right? So it's not about like winning or like manipulating someone
Not at all, no.
into being a certain way or whatever.
Right, it's not a game.
Right.
It's about two individuals who are coming together,
Yeah.
trying to navigate this very complex thing called connection.
And like honoring each other's individuality in that process too.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I think sometimes these models, they can make it seem like, oh, if I just do X, Y, and Z, then I can get this outcome.
Then I can get my desired outcome.
And they'll fall in love with me or
I'll
whatever.
commit. Yeah.
Right, but it's so much more complicated than that.
And I think the beauty is in the complexity.
Totally.
You know, like, I think when we try to oversimplify, it's when we actually start to lose the richness of what these connections can offer.
It's like ditch the script and write your own story together.
Exactly.
Right. And maybe that story is way more interesting
Yeah.
because it doesn't fit into this predefined box.
I love that.
So I guess a final thought for our listeners.
Yeah.
If the blue pill and the red pill are just two pieces of a much larger puzzle,
Right.
what other pieces are we missing?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Right. Like what about attachment styles?
Yeah.
What about, childhood experiences and how that influences how we relate to people? Trauma, all of that. There's a whole world of other things to consider.
There is. And I would even add to that list, like, what about just our own individual values
Yes.
and belief systems, things that are important to us that maybe don't fit neatly into those categories, but that are still very much a part of who we are and how we approach relationships.
Yeah. So as always, we encourage you to keep asking those questions.
Yeah.
Keep digging deeper.
Keep learning, for sure.
And figure out what works for you.
Absolutely.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Definitely not.
But that's what makes it interesting.
That's what makes it exciting, right?
Exactly.
It's an adventure.
An adventure. All right, well, thanks for going on this adventure with me.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
This was fun.
Always a pleasure.
All right, we'll talk to you all next time.